Hello, 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 New Haven. It is a beautiful Friday. The sun is out, and we are back. This is Arts Respond on WNHHLP Community Radio 103.5 FM New Haven, collaboration with the Arts Council of Greater New Haven. I'm your host, Lucy Gellman, and today I'm really excited to be here with Sam Carlson. Sam, do you prefer just SG Carlson? Are you like that cool?
Oh, Sam is fine.
Okay. Cool. Who is one quarter of the Times, Jay Thompson, Sam, who's right here, Ilya Gittleman, and Sean Caravo. And today we will be talking about their first, your album, your eponymously named album, so The Times, which is coming out on August 26th. But you have a track and video coming out on July 15th, Friday, July 15th, which I'm super excited about. It's 1 week from today if you're listening live. If you're not listening live, just disregard everything I said, except for the days that the Times have good stuff coming out. So welcome, Sam, to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So first of all, for folks who don't know, and I will preface this by saying, as someone who has written about music in New Haven for a little while, it's hard not to know one or all of you in the Times. I feel like you're sort of omnipresent because in addition to the Times, all of you gig in 26 to 31 groups at any given time, maybe? I don't know. Do I have that correct?
It's definitely it's a band's band for sure.
Yeah.
The people that are in the Times have played in dozens of other Connecticut-based projects for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that y'all have a show tonight at the Space Ballroom at when are doors? 7, 8?
I think doors are at 7 and the show starts at 8.
Awesome.
That way, if it's actually 8 and 9, no one's late because I told them the wrong time.
Right.
Yeah, we're playing at the ballroom tonight with Michaela Davis, who's a harp player, and the Fivers, who are also a Connecticut-based band, and I think they have an album out today. So everyone should check out the Fivers as well.
Awesome, that's really cool. So I want to talk about this album and how it came into being, and your process as a songwriter, and also the band's process, because I know that that can be acrimonious if it goes wrong. I'm not saying that it was in this situation, but I want to start with the pandemic, which I know played a role in how this came together over multiple years. And so I'm wondering if you can take us back. At this point, I think we know that the pandemic sort of turned the world upside down for everyone, including for artists. And what I saw as an arts writer was artists who were losing, first it was days, then it was weeks, then it was really months of work overnight. And so what did that look like for all of you?
Well, so in terms of the band, this was originally a group of people that I had gotten together to play music from a solo album that I put out, actually came out in April of 2020. So obviously none of those gigs happened. We canceled a bunch of stuff. But what we did have suddenly was a lot of time, and we, I have a recording studio. As you can see, this is where I work. And basically, we just had a ton of free time and an open studio, but we couldn't all actually get together physically. So I just, wrote a couple more songs and recorded them really quickly, and had our, drummer Jay came in and played first. And then our bass player came in, and one by one, everything got added. And that was our first EP. I don't think anyone other than me really knew what it sounded like until it was released. So, and then after that, we were able to get together once it was a little bit safer, to get together here and start hashing stuff out as a group. And it kind of transformed from people playing music that I had written into all of us playing music that we had come up with together.
And I'm also curious. I think for some artists, especially in New Haven, the pandemic was super fruitful. I'm thinking of, for instance, Alex Burnett, and you've played with her
Uh,
many, many times. And like she came out with a whole darn, I'm trying not to swear, new label and employed artists during this time, which was super, super important. And other artists I know and that I wrote about just completely shut down because I think there was so much going on and it felt really, really heavy. And so, for you, how were you experiencing that first like year and a half? Because we're still in it, right?
it's definitely still going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, the water's not quite safe yet. But so I think for me, I had two two very different artistic experiences kind of within myself in the beginning of the pandemic. Um, One being that there were suddenly all of these, these new opportunities because like there's, the streaming started at District, and like bands were going and playing those, and like kind of getting into live streaming stuff and pre-recording things. I basically learned video production soup to nuts because of the pandemic. Um, but also like yeah, I did like Alex and her label Free as Birds put out our first EP, and she assembled this wonderful compilation of music that people had made in quarantine early on. And my studio was lucky enough to get part of that grant to master it. So it was really like kind of an amazing time, in part because so much of sort of I guess the hustle and like the constant sort of hamster wheel of work that goes into the arts stopped temporarily. And that was the second experience for me, was this kind of odd sense of relief at being forced to do nothing for a little while. It was probably honestly the first time in like 8 or 9 years that I had gone a day without sending a booking email or something. It was kind of really nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm glad to be back, but it was nice to be able to just slow down for a while and just take walks and make breakfast and hang out at home.
And I know part of that was you were able to really invest in sans serif, which I didn't even mention at the top of the show. But I'm wondering if you can tell folks who are not in the know what sans serif is, and how you, because I feel like you were able to build out the studio's footprint really intentionally during and I don't want to say after the pandemic because we're not post pandemic.
Yeah, it's still going. um Yeah, so I am one of the operators of Sans Serif Recording. It's a small spot right in downtown New Haven that I run with Pat Dalton, who is in the Proud Flesh. And chances are, if you have ever played a show in New Haven, Pat has probably done your sound. He's going to be doing sound later tonight for us at the ballroom. So we found like a 2-room suite downtown, and we were able to convert it right in time to tentatively open March 1st of 2020. And then or sorry, we were supposed to open April 1st, but by the middle of March it was clear that that was just not going to happen. So yeah, had to pump the brakes on it for a couple months, and find sort of odd things to do to pay bills and stuff. Um, One of which was, of course, the Free of Birds compilation. And then, once people started to feel a little safer, and we started to get more of a handle on how the virus actually spread, and people were able to come in. And I feel like since then, it seems like the floodgates have really kind of opened, and I have fully lost track of how many records have come out of here by now. It's like two years in.
That's beautiful. That feels like a good problem to have, I hope.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think me from 4 years ago would never believe that this was what I do
Mm.
full time now. It was something that I always wanted to do, and I'd been recording my own bands and my friends' bands for a while, and eventually I just decided that I was going to make a go of it.
Yeah.
Uh, So, for anyone out there listening, if there's a crazy idea that you want to try, the right time to try it is yesterday.
Mm, yeah, that's I like that. Unless it's like jumping out of a plane without a parachute, and then we do
Oh,
not endorse that.
yeah.
Right.
If it's just you don't succeed, never skydive.
Yeah. And for this, you worked with Funny Bone Records, and so I'm wondering if you can tell for this LP, The Times.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if you can tell me about because they feel like they're a record company that I started being aware of like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, maybe more than that. And then I feel like now the name is just omnipresent. And so talk to me about the recording process. Well, I also want to hear about the songwriting process, but maybe we'll do it in reverse. So we'll talk about the recording process and then we'll go back to the songwriting process.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, first to say a little bit about Funny Bone, they're helping us with the release of this, and it's a label from up in Hartford, run by Dylan Healy, who is just the nicest, and yeah, it's just a really good group of people, and all of the artists that they put out are fantastic. Like just going through their website and looking at all of the releases, like it's really kind of a who's who from around the state, which honestly was part of why I wanted to work with them on it. It's just that, like, I've been in New Haven for a long time, and I love New Haven. It's my favorite place. But I do feel like I always wind up playing New Haven venues and playing with other New Haven artists. And I was just looking at this label that has people from around the region, and thinking like, this looks like a good group to be with, and like maybe get out of my home turf a little bit more.
Yeah, that's real. I think New Haven, so I say this with like deep love. Like I truly believe New Haven's the cultural capital of Connecticut. I will fight someone about New Haven, right? Um, but I think because of that, sometimes I get so in the silent. Like I was covering something in West Haven the other day, and I was like, "Yo, this is great. West Haven has it going on. Who knew?" Right? And I will actually say, Hartford has it is a great slogan.
Yeah.
It's so much better than greatest small city in America. No slight to the people who came up with that, but a total side eye to the people who came up with that. Um, yeah, like Hartford has it going on, and there is stuff popping up around the state. So I think you're right that sometimes we get in our little New Haven bubble because there is so much cultural stuff to do that you really don't have to leave the city if you don't want to. So I want to jump back to the songwriting process and ask you,
Of course.
about your work as a songwriter. Like, do you sit down? I know songwriters who like sit down and they're like, okay, for the next 3 hours, I'm going to do this. I also know people who like let it happen to them organically in the shower, and sort of everything in between.
So I am definitely more of the organic path, where, like, I kind of need something to occur to me. And I think, like, I'm capable of sitting down and just saying, like, I am going to write a song now, and I'm gonna finish it. But it's probably not going to be a very good song. So I sort of I need things to kind of show up in my head. But then lately, my habit has been that once once a decent idea shows up, I will work on it until some form of it is done. Just because it's so it can be so daunting. It's like writing the first page of a book or something like that, and you're just like, okay, well, like, I've got a first page I like. um the second page is way more difficult, and like, I find that if I just sort of barrel through it and get to the end of the first draft, then I have a lot easier time going back and like making changes, and like, I'll often wind up rewriting the whole thing. But like, I do feel like it's important to finish something first, just because the best song is the one that you eventually put out somewhere.
Hmm. And do you leave a lot on the cutting room floor?
I do. Yeah, I think so for with that's definitely part of where the band
Yeah.
comes to, is I'll try to come up with three or four ideas and then present those ideas to the group, and the one that they like is the one that we use, and the
Mhm.
other three get, kind of thrown in a bin somewhere. And maybe they'll reappear later if there's some improvement. But
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like it's so easy to overwork things, and it's so easy to try to like write and write and write and improve and improve and improve. Um, but I might be misquoting here, but I think it's Ben Franklin that perfect is the enemy of good.
Mhm. Oh, I like that.
I like my own work so much more when I am just sort of shooting from the hip and winging it, and it's more
Yeah.
a problem finding exercise than a problem solving exercise. Because it's not like, it's not like it's the only song I'll ever write. I can always write another. So if I write one that's bad, I just won't use it.
Right. And I was sort of like watching, so some artists don't like listening to their own product.
Hmm.
And so do you feel that way? Or are you like, once it's out in the world, are you like, okay, it's out in the world, I can listen to it? Obviously, you're going to be playing it because you're gigging places, right?
Yeah. I think once it's out and finished, I will listen to it if it comes on at a place where I am. you know, um, but I'm not gonna be driving around in my car listening to my own music particularly. Not that I don't think it's really good, just that in the process of making it and mixing it and having it mastered and all of the promotion, I will have heard it enough times for my entire life, probably. I think um, I do. So I did a while ago. I went down memory lane a little bit with Ilya, who's the guitarist in the Tines, because we've been in a band called Ports of Spain for like 10 years, 11 years now. Um, and we like sat and listened to a lot of our old discography, and it held up for me. I mean, we were both like, wow, I can't believe it sounds like this. I haven't actively listened to it in 7 years or something.
And I would love to ask Ilya this too, because he is such a beast on stage. But are you like, when you're gigging, do you feel like you're Sam, or do you feel like you step into a different zone?
I sort of so I don't lose sight of the fact that I am myself, but I definitely, because I'm uh fairly reserved usually, and like I don't in my day-to-day life, I don't exactly embody like kind of a rock star. That it's just not really who I am. So I've had to adopt sort of like techniques over the years to get myself sort of psyched up to be a person who's on stage. Like one of the things I've been doing is, in order to kind of give myself permission to be louder, I make sure that as soon as I get on stage, I like kind of yell something. it's it's just like a way to kind of open up that and say like, okay, this is the person that I have to be for the next like hour
Yeah,
or
I
something.
don't see you. I can't see you yelling. I mean, I've seen you play, right?
Yeah.
But I just can't see you like getting angry off stage and like yelling, or projecting.
No, I'm not a huge projector in my private life, but that's one of the really wonderful things about music and being in the arts, and like being in a music department, is that it's sort of, it's like gives quiet people permission to be loud.
Yeah,
Like being on stage, when you're on stage, you are a picture that's in a frame, and everyone who sees that picture assumes that it's exactly what the artist has intended it to be. And you kind of like get this permission while you're in that frame to like to act up and to do things that you wouldn't normally do, and to like sort of like pretend to be a different person for a bit. Um, I think in some cases people really like do become someone else. Like, so are you familiar with the Killer Ken, local band Killer Ken?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
uh Matt, the singer in Killer Ken, is like terrifying on stage. He is an amazing front man. He is like, you know, Iggy Pop level. And in person, he is like the nicest dude you've ever met.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really like, yeah, you do have to kind of, I guess, get yourself into the mode.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, if you're just joining us here on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven, I'm Lucy Gellman. This is Arts Respond, and today my guest is Sam Carlson. He is one quarter. I hate saying like you're one quarter of because it just sounds kind of inhumane, but he is part of the Times, a group that consists of Jay Thompson, Sam Carlson, who's here with me, Ilya Gittleman, and John Cravo. They have a show tonight, July 8th, at the Space Ballroom, and are releasing an eponymous record, The Tines, called The Tines, produced at Sans Serif Recording and released through Funny Bone Records on August 26th. So we are talking about that. We're talking about a little bit of everything. But Sam, I want to ask you, you know, specifically about this record and the group's evolution during these like weird 3 years. um, so one of the things, so it's 9 tracks, it's about 30 minutes. And, you know, one of the things that you talked about in a press release is like indie exploration and sort of alternative exploration. And so I'm wondering if you can talk about that and about y'all's process as a group.
Absolutely. So I think the exploratory angle was really big here. And like, if you know, when you listen to the record, it's 9 tracks that all sound pretty different. You know, for better or worse. I think the only through line is that the players on the record sort of have their own unique fingerprints on it. Like, you can always tell that it's the same band, definitely. But like, because we had so much time and we had a studio at our disposal, we were able to get really granular with each song and like kind of make it a bit of an expedition. The songs were written and recorded one at a time. So like, you know, if I would come up with a couple to bring to the group, and we would pick one. And then usually we would like try to finish the arrangement that day and record it the next day, so that everything is, you know, everything is very from the hip. I think that helps to give everything its own flavor, and like helps to make the tracks feel more different from one another, in that we're sort of, you know, while we were working on it, we were looking at individual trees rather than the forest.
I like that. And I also want to ask you about the choice to do music videos. So this is the music video for Collarbone is coming out next Friday. Is that one of the ones coming out? Okay. So July 15th, if you're not listening to the show on July 8th, by next Friday, I mean July 15th. And it's not the first music video that you've released. You've sort of played with this idea of, okay, what can I do visually with this music before? It's super fun. I don't want to ruin anything for people, but I do want to ask you a little bit about the sort of the process of storyboarding, because as someone who has been lucky enough to watch this, it's kind of like Ouija meets disaster porn meets NASA meets like old Pfizer factory. It's like there are a lot of things going on, and it ends up being super fun to watch.
Oh, good. That's a, so I think I would say for the, as far as these like the storyboarding, I think that question might be better directed to Kicker Pictures, who made it with us. I've done a bunch of music videos with them, as has, I think, you know, the rest of Connecticut at this point, and they're just wonderful, so easy to work with. But I am a lifelong spooky person. I like horror. I like ghost stories. Like, so I just got in touch with them and I said, you know, I want to do something with like a haunted house, or I want to do something with a seance. And we kind of came up with this concept of like urban explorers. Like it's some urban explorers breaking into an old factory building and disturbing something.
Which,
And it was,
oh,
oh
go
yeah.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh no, just a ton of fun to make, and like all of the lighting in it is so good. Like that was I just feel like it's like art can be so holistic, and like finding people that you can work well with is such a huge part of it. I mean, it's nice to do things yourself too, but it's really good to have that kind of community and to like be able to work with people that you put trust in, and to like let people do what they do best.
No, I think that's true. And it did, like, watching it, I was like, am I like, this reminds me of a rave in an old building? And I was gonna say New Haven's also such a good, really, New Haven and Connecticut, because we do have some of that post-industrial, whatever you want to call it, maybe not as much as a lot of cities in the Midwest. I'm thinking of Detroit,
Mm.
St. Louis, sort of along the Rust Belt. But we definitely have that, and I feel like musicians and artists more broadly often occupy those spaces because in a city like New Haven, we've certainly seen, even sort of before the pandemic, but certainly during the pandemic, a lot of the city has become just too expensive for artists to inhabit, like for artists to live. And so I know that, for instance, a ton of bands practice at the old, I think it's an old Pfizer factory on Shelton Avenue. Um, and if you walk,
That is where we filmed.
yeah, yeah. And if you walk past it I had a feeling. If you walk past at certain hours of the day, you can actually hear music, like you can hear drums um, and I know, I mean, this is RIP Daggett Street, which was such an important home to just many, many musicians before it was shut down by the city, probably for the best, but because it was also a fire trap. But so I'm wondering if we can listen, Harry, to an excerpt of a track. And Sam, can you just give a little bit of background before we listen to this?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a song called "No" by Feel, that features Morgan Eve Swain on strings. I don't know if the section we hear will have the strings in it, but this was the second song that was recorded, and the idea basically was to try to do something uh, very very sparse and open feeling, and like very different from the first song that we had done.
Great.
It's New England in the autumn, and I'm counting all the brassy leaves that I can bring to you. I've got 7 red and 3 gold, and I'm gathering up enough to make a crown that will sit you. I don't know why I feel. I don't know why I feel. There's a candle in the middle of our altar. There's a candle there that's always burning blue. And at times an open door will make it falter, but it all recovers from the breath that you it always feels. It always feels. It always feels. It always feels.
Thank you, Harry. Harry Droz is the man behind the controls, if people don't know. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you.
So that has me in my feelings, right? And I'm also wondering, do I assume you write everything and then you're like, okay, how is this puzzle put together?
Yes. So that song's actually a very good example of that. Um, and that like usually, so I will come up with, sort of splatter painting like 60% of a song. And then I bring it into the group, and if they like it, they completely deconstruct it, and it becomes something very different. Um, so originally, from me, that song was very kind of, it was very strummy, almost Neil Youngy.
Mm.
Um, and then our rhythm section with Jay and Sean, um, like really transformed it, particularly just the bass line that Sean picked for it. And like the minute he started playing it, I was like, oh no, this is actually how this song goes. Like I
Mm.
was totally wrong about how I thought it went. Um, which is fascinating to see that you can really do you can do a song in an infinite number of ways. And when it's really in its infancy like that, you might hear it one way, but you don't know how everyone else hears it, and
Mm.
probably everyone hears something different. um, so that one got really recontextualized into something that to me is a lot more interesting than what I had what I had come up with on my own.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you feel like those surprises sort of like I was going to say come through the album? It sounds like yes, but was the recording process and the rehearsing process just totally full of that?
Definitely. Yeah, I always think of it like it's almost like brushing dirt off a fossil, kind of, where like
Yeah.
you're looking at it and you're like, I think this might be like a jar or something, and you start brushing it off and you're like, oh no, actually this is like part of a chair. It sort of reveals itself to you gradually, especially with a group.
Mm.
uh, to get to go for another sort of spooky seance angle. Writing with a group is a little bit like a Ouija board, in that the things just sort of happen in front of you, and
Mhm.
no one really knows which one is moving it. But it gets there collectively.
Yeah, and do you feel, I mean, y'all are still together, so no one killed anyone else. Um,
But not yet. Yeah.
but it sounds, I mean, did you have you always worked just super collectively? You said, it's a band's band. So obviously these are all folks who are used to because I feel like in a band it's a language of give and take that sometimes happens with no words at all. And there is some compromise that has to happen. Or I feel like you get a solo performer who breaks away from the band. And we've seen that sometimes in New Haven and certainly nationally. It's like Destiny's Child is maybe the model that springs most clearly to mind. Um, but it sounds like all of you are still really happily getting along and collaborating.
Yeah, no, it's been really good so far, and it's definitely different for me in that I've been in a ton of bands, and a lot of the time I'm just like uh, I'm playing I'm playing an instrument in a band, but I'm not the writer particularly. And the bands that I've been in where I have had a heavy hand on like the writing of it have been bands with only two people,
Yeah.
um, being Ports of Spain and Winter White, where like with Ports of Spain, that was it's like a creative partnership between Ilya and I that's still going, where like um it's largely kind of down the middle. And we would have to come up with ways to compromise with each other, and find ways to inspire each other all the time. With four people, it's different in that I feel like you like with the more people that are involved, the more you do kind of need someone who has the initial spark, and like kind of, and also someone who's willing to send an inhuman number of emails. I think everyone,
Yeah.
every group needs that. But then, like, being able to work collectively with it, I feel like everyone is much more invested in it,
Mm.
and everyone, I think, has a better time. Like, when I've obviously have been the side man in a lot of things, and will continue to be. Just I love to play, but I feel much more kind of pride and ownership of things when I know that I have input and my input is valued.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really very real. And I'm also wondering, you said earlier in the show you leave a lot on the cutting room floor. Has this process also helped you sort of maybe like part with the idea of preciousness? So I know writers, songwriters, certainly reporters, who like feel that every word they write is extremely precious. And when someone, suggests a change, it's like all of a sudden it's a personal attack. And I feel like there's real growth that has to happen for you to leave things on the cutting room floor and to have sort of a like kill your darlings approach to singing and to songwriting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm personally, I'm having a bit of my own renaissance right now, just
Oh,
because
great.
I have really, I think, kind of gotten the the ability to kill those darlings.
Hmm.
Um, where, like, if something isn't working, then I'm not interested in doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like in the past, and I think in a lot of people's present, if they have an idea that they think is like decent, they will hyper focus on that idea for days or weeks or years. um, when, like, really, if you can sort of step back from it, you'll see that there's so much else out there for you that you
Hmm.
can do. So I've found it really, really liberating to bring 3 songs to a group and have them just say, like, that's the good one, we don't like the other two.
Yeah.
Like,
And
thank you. now
I,
i'm now I'm free
yeah.
to work on something else now.
I feel like people like poets, musicians can always have, for that like one really good line. There's something that the poet Roger Bonarigard calls the dope line graveyard. And it's like the shoebox that you put under your bed with all of the good lines. And now and then you pull it out and you're like, oh, that's really good. Okay. Um,
uh, I have, um
do you have a shoebox?
not a literal shoebox, but I have a notes thing in my phone of, like, every
Yeah.
every
It's a 21st
uh,
century shoebox.
every halfway decent thing from something else I wrote that didn't get kept, so that,
Yeah. Amazing.
if
Um,
I'm like, oh, this melody's kind of nice, let me see what I have that's 5 syllables. I
yeah.
can just slide down the list and see if there's anything worth using.
Well, we're entering the final sort of 10 minutes of the show, and I just want to tell people who are joining us and maybe haven't been here that this is Arts Respond on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. It just started raining outside, so I'm sorry if you hear like the
Oh,
wind blowing and all of that. And today I'm here with guest Sam Carlson. We're talking about the Times eponymously named album, The Times, which will be released on August 26th. But before that, you can look out for a track and video on Friday, July 15th, which is very, very exciting. Do you know what time of day? Like if people are really hyped to listen?
oh, I think so. I think on the 15th, it should be on Spotify and stuff at like kind of midnight, like really, really, really early on the morning of the 15th. And
Awesome.
I believe the video will be coming out at like maybe 11 or noon.
Cool.
But I'm gonna go ahead and trust fall on Funny Bone for that one, because we're playing in Burlington, Vermont that night.
Oh,
Oh,
Burlington is so cool.
I love Burlington. Yeah. New Haven, obviously the greatest small city in America, but Burlington is certainly close to the top of the list.
Sure. Let's find a new slogan. I'm just like I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I think the state needs to find a new slogan. For a long time, it was Connecticut Still Revolutionary, which is funny
Revolutionary.
because
Mm.
Connecticut is not revolutionary, although currently we're a national model for abortion laws, but that's a
That
different show.
that's a feather in our cap for
It's
sure.
totally,
I
yes.
think I also saw that we were the first state to we have like a safety program for transgendered people, which I feel like I remember reading that. I was like, that's really cool of us to do.
That's yeah. That's so
Yeah,
Connecticut does some things the right way. But
yeah.
I want to ask you in our last couple minutes about just the value, and maybe this sounds like really crunchy, but just the value of playing music right now, and sort of, and also for you, like it's not like music is your fallback, right? Music is your vocation, and different sides of music. And so, I'm wondering for folks who say, well, what's the value of that right now? Well, the world is totally upside down, literally and figuratively on fire. A lot of us lost our right to bodily autonomy 2 weeks ago. There's just a lot of bullshit going on in the world. So,
Well, the string quartet kept playing while the Titanic sank, so there's that. But Yeah, I think, I mean, so the real change in society, um, I think has to come from the bottom up. At this point, I think I, as well as you know, most Americans have lost what faith we had in our government, and in their ability and willingness to actually do anything for us. So like if you're looking for a bright spot in society, it's going to be someone like Woody Guthrie, who has a machine that kills fascists and plays it every night. Um, and I think it's just a valuable source it's a source of entertainment, a valuable exchange of ideas, and the stranger the world gets, the more people need a distraction from it, which music and live entertainment certainly provides that. It's that was another kind of interesting pandemic thing, was that like there was suddenly so much interest in the arts and in artists, as if they all hadn't been scraping by on fumes for decades.
right.
So um but it was like, oh man, everyone is stuck at home, like time to turn to
Yeah.
entertainers to keep us going. So it's
Oh yeah. And then for the people who are like, oh, the arts are great, but I can't fund this blankety blank, fill in the blank. I've heard so
yeah.
many examples. I want to be like, okay, but probably like, how did you get through COVID? You probably Netflixed your way through it,
Oh,
Spotify
absolutely.
your way through it, Bandcamped your way through it. Yeah. So,
Totally. Or like, like the arts aren't a viable career. Now let me go spend my paycheck on vinyl or
yep.
something.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's um I think the arts are not highly valued monetarily. Uh,
Hmm.
they're not exactly part of like the manna that keeps capitalism afloat, but they are, I think for the human soul and the human condition, about the highest valued thing we have.
Yeah. And what is this project also doing like for you? Again, not to sound crunchy, but like for your heart, right?
Oh, keeping me out of a rubber room, certainly.
Yeah, that's
No,
real.
it's great. I don't know, if if I wasn't doing music, I'd have to be making movies or something. It's creativity is the most important thing in my life, and I don't know what else I could be doing.
Yeah. Well, before we go to choke cherries, which I'm going to ask you to introduce, I want folks who have been listening to the show to know how they can find you, Sam Carlson, how they can find Sans Serif, and how they can find the Tines on all the socials so they don't miss this release, first on July 15th, but then on August 26th. And so they can go spend their money on independent musicians who are making music in New Haven.
Thank you. So we are at, I believe, The Tines at bandcamp.com. We're on Spotify as The Tines and Instagram as The Tines. And Facebook, I'm sure you can fill in the blank for yourself. Yeah, so this song, Choke Cherry, is one of my favorite tracks off the new record. And have recently entered my 30s, and I think this was a song that was, for me, was about the cool aspects of getting older, or that,
Wait, and before we go into the song,
leaving my 20s at least.
what are the cool? Because I also recently entered, well, 2 years ago, so I've been in my 30s for a while, but I found that one of the best things about getting older is like you just don't care about stuff that you cared about when you were in your 20s.
Yeah, and certainly I think a lot of being in your 20s is wrapped up in the idea of being in your 20s. And like, especially for artists, you kind of look at turning 30 as sort of like a death sentence. You're like, oh, by the time he was my age, Kurt Cobain had already died. But like, no, it's there's never a reason to stop doing the things that you care about. And I think, like, when you wake up and you are a little bit older, you can kind of look back at everything that you've done, and you can look to those laurels to drive yourself forward.
Well, Sam Carlson, thank you so much. If you've been here listening with us, please go find and support work by The Tines. Sam, I appreciate you. Have a great weekend. And Harry, can you take us out with Choke Cherries, please?
And I know